Hey guys, thank you so much for showing up today. I am so glad that you're here. I'm so glad that you're listening, and just thank you. It is a wonderful, big, beautiful day out there, and I hope you are just as excited to be running through it as I am. You're listening to the Holistic Hippie RN. I'm your host, Lara Gibby. I am a holistic nurse and energy worker. Today, it's actually kind of funny because I've been having a hard time recording this episode, and I was sitting there thinking, okay, I've recorded over and over again, and the words just weren't coming out right. And when that happens, I was like, okay, just pause, just breathe. Maybe I'm talking about something that isn't meant to flow out right now, and there's something else I need to talk about. And that still hasn't come in yet. So I was like, you know what? Just put it out there, do it messy. However, I always talk about just do it messy. And I totally missed my own advice because I started recording it over and over again. I couldn't even get past my intro at some point. And I was just like, this is not how I show up. I like to show up just getting my words out there, because the minute I don't like what I'm saying and I hit the stop button and then go back to do it again, I almost get more flustered. Um, and so what's interesting about that is it also goes into what I wanted to talk about, I guess. So what I wanted to talk about was authenticity. And I wanted to talk about how, are you walking your talk or are you talking your walk? What I mean by that is, do you just tell something to someone that you intend as advice, but you don't do it in your own life? Or do you actually live your life by your advice? I realized over the past months that I haven't been walking my talk. And I realized this because I'm not going to blame the weather necessarily, but I realized over the past couple weeks, I've not been getting outside. I've not been moving. I've not been getting fresh air. It's been so hot that I just want to stay inside. I get cabin fever this time of year because of the heat, whereas when I lived in Colorado, I got cabin fever in February because it was cold. Um, and I realized I constantly tell people, you need your mind, your body, and your spirit balanced. That's, part of being a holistic nurse, even, is like guiding people on that. And I realized I've not been moving my body. My little guy went back to school like a month ago, and I have just buckled down in working on my business and working with people that I've just been so focused on getting stuff done. I've been at the computer most of the hours that he's in school so that I can get my business done the hours that I would be alone. And then when he's out of school, I can play and hang out, which is good because I'm balancing that. But I'm not balancing my movement. I feel like I was getting like hunched shoulders, like where you're just kind of like hunched over the computer and the wrong kind of lighting. And so I took him to school the other day and I was like, you know what? It's finally 10 degrees cooler, which that makes waves. I mean, when it's like 110 degrees out for months or more, and then suddenly the high for the day is 100 degrees, one, the mornings are much cooler because it actually has time to cool down at night. And two, you just notice the difference. I mean, I usually say I don't check the weather once it gets to triple digits because it's all hot. But this year I noticed that it's actually less hot than when it's above 110. So I took him to school and I was like thinking about it, and I was like, I tell people to move all the time and I've not been moving and I'm feeling really crummy from it. I mean, and it shows up in all areas. I can feel it. Like, I feel like, I'm just kind of stiffer. I'm not as stretchy because obviously my muscles are getting just like where they're not as strong. My heart's not compensating the same. My lungs are not expanding the same. When you truly work out your body, you're working out every single piece of it. Like, it's all moving. It's all the organs are getting worked out. Your muscles are getting stronger. Your bones are doing better even. So the important thing about that, though, is if you're not balanced in one area, you're not balanced in your mind and your spirit. And with your body, you want that to be balanced because your body is the vessel that carries your spirit throughout the life that you live. This is what is in this world to show you the life that you're living. This is Your body is a very precious, special thing, and you should take care of it. And I have not been taking care of mine. Even with my eating over the summer, I was eating a lot more sugar, and I've cut back on that in the past month or two, and I've noticed a huge difference even in just that. So I dropped my little guy off at school, and I was like, I'm going to go for a run. And I realized all these cool thoughts on my run. I realized like all these ideas that came in. All this stuff was just flowing in. And it's because when you're moving your body, you don't have to be running. It could be any kind of moving. You could be dancing. You could be swimming. You could be just moving and getting out there. And I'll be honest, I actually don't get into running that much normally because there's something about it I've never really liked that much, except for, I think for a little while I did running more, and I got zoned in on that more. I got zoned in the other day. It was amazing. I went running on a dirt trail. I love running in nature, even with the cacti around. And it was just beautiful. I had all these ideas come in. I realized what I had been blocking from myself because I wasn't moving. And then every day this week, I've gone running. Except for today, I pulled weeds because it's good enough in the morning to pull the weeds. But I love it because I want you to think about, what are you telling people, advising them on, trying to give them help on to better their life, that you're not taking that information for your own life. And I think about how with kids, it's actually a really good analogy of how you should treat yourself. Because when you have children, that's your heart, and you want the best for them. You want to grow them into amazing human beings. You want them to be healthy body, healthy minded, strong souled. And when you tell them things to raise them right, you should really tell that to yourself, because you also want to love your inner child and guide your inner child. And so everything you teach your children, you should really try to apply to yourself. You want them to eat healthy, you should eat healthy. There's a meme that I found really funny. It's a lady holding a lettuce leaf and an ice cream sandwich behind it so her kids don't see it. And it's just kind of funny because a lot of times that's what we do. We tell people to do stuff. We tell people, hey, eat this diet, but then we don't follow the diet. We tell people, hey, go running, but then we don't go running. And there's so much strength that you can put in your mind, body, and soul if you followed what you knew would be beneficial to you that you tell everyone else is beneficial. So when I think about that too, is if you're dropping the bar in somewhere in your life, it's also falling out in other places. So I want you to kind of consider, where in your life are you not being fully authentic to yourself? Where are you kind of dropping the ball in your life of not actually following through with what you advise other people on? I didn't even realize, I guess, how much impact it was having on me, like as far as even having ideas come in because I wasn't moving. And I mean, I still have a lot of ideas come in, even just working, but I had so much, that night I was like, I have this idea. There's so many ideas. And I didn't even have coffee that morning. I cut back on coffee. And so it was so inspiring. And I want you to think about, how can you balance your mind, body, and spirit? That's what I guide people on. That's what I talk about all the time. And that's how I love to support people in teaching them, hey, let's connect the dots on how one thing is not working in your life and how it's playing into the rest of your life. But then I didn't do it for myself. And so it's kind of like, see where those holes are. Once you fix one of the holes, it plays out. So since I've been running, it's almost like I can see the patterns of how I want my goals to mesh, how I want my goals for September. I think I made like 7 goals for September, and how they can all line up and play out. And I realized, hey, just this more confidence of like, I'm going to make my goals happen. I'm going to do this, as opposed to, oh my gosh, I hope I could get the goals done because I'm trying to do this and I'm trying to do this. And it's more of like, it just gives you a pause in your mind and your mind breathes. So that was kind of my thought with that. The other thing that was really fun though, is that I started a blog, and my first blog is on getting messy. I mean, literally earlier this week, I posted it, and the whole thing's on getting messy, and I don't follow that, I realized. or I hadn't been, like just with this episode, even how it was like, oh no, I want it to be just right. I want it to come out just right. I want it to sound just right. But really, that's not really how I see myself doing things. Like, I want to do them well. Don't get me wrong. Like, if you do something, I think it's great to put your all into it and make it as good as you can. But I think it's also okay, just get it out there so you can put your words into the world so that you can make an impact. And the more you do something, the more of an expert you become at that. So I just found it interesting about how I couldn't figure out the words I wanted to say while I was saying them. I said a lot of really good things, like the past 10 things I tried to record, but I'm going to keep this one because I'm doing it messy and I'm getting it out there. And the really cool thing, though, is after I wrote my blog post, I was reading a book that night, and literally it said in a sentence, like something about just start a blog, do it messy. I was like, wait, I just wrote about that. Like, this is kind of a sign, I feel like, that I just wrote about something that I'm really aligned with. Like, when I start seeing things like that, I always think of it as, oh, I'm getting like this sign that I'm aligned with this. And I talk a lot about embody your dream self, embody the vision. Step into those small steps about who would you be if you were living your vision, right? And so one of the things I have in mind is that I'm a writer. And for the longest, like, I journal a lot, but I haven't been like big as far as writing. I think over the past months I've been writing more. So anyways, I finally started blogging. I've outlined a chapter in a book that I want to write. And one of the ideas that came up for me was a writer's membership. And I was like, okay, that's kind of random. And then I realized, wait, no, it's not. This is a creative inspiration coming in to help other writers, but it's also me being able to embody my vision. And it's actually a really cool membership. I love it because it's brainstorming and you're co-writing with other authors, but you're co-writing on your own things alongside them. So what I thought was interesting is the more I thought about it, I was kind of like, that's pretty cool. That's a really big way to embody my dream self, you know? And it's a really good way to show up authentically in myself of like, hey, I want to be a writer. So this will get me to sit down and start writing. This will help me brainstorm with others on how they can better what they're writing about, right? Same with the podcast is the sense of like, oh, I want to get my words out more. I want to speak more. So I'm going to show up and do my podcast. And this week I almost dropped the ball on it because it's Friday now. And usually I like to put out an episode on like a Tuesday or Wednesday. I was like, oh, it's Friday and I'm not going to do it on the weekend because usually I'm really focused in with my family. And so I was like, I got to get it done today. And then I sat down and it wasn't working. I was like, ooh, I see what's going on. It's like part of me is dropping the ball in getting my podcast out there. Am I going to stick? I almost gave up when I wasn't getting it out there, when I wasn't getting my words out. I almost gave up. And I was like, no, stick with it. Just stick with it. Take a breath. Like, you need to stay committed. Like, your commitments to yourself are so important. And when I wrote out my goals this month, I was like, I'm going to be committed to these goals because that's part of showing up for yourself in your life. That's part of, in my case, it's part of me walking my talk because one of my biggest things is show up for yourself, love yourself, listen to yourself. And it's that sense of like, be authentic to yourself. And one of my things is be committed to it. So when I write a goal, it's like, be committed to it, be committed to creating that. And when you commit to that, you actually gain more confidence in that happening. You can see that happening because the more you write it, the more you think it, the more that is starting to be created in your universe. So I thought that was interesting too, because I was like, I need to show up in that area. I write down goals all the time. Sometimes they happen, sometimes they don't, which is like, even with the exercise, sometimes I do it, sometimes I don't. And so it's kind of like, wait, I need to walk my talk. I need to show up for myself 100%. You know, I need to take the time to really nourish myself, because if I can't take that time for myself, who am I to be telling someone else that they should do that for themselves? And when you up that energy level, then other people see that. and they start doing that too. I've talked to a lot of people actually over the past couple weeks, and it's kind of like, hey, like when you up your energy level into what you were trying to achieve, everyone around you sees that and they're inspired. And it's a really empowering thought if you think about it, as far as like how much of your own energy inspires others. So if you're kind of like icky low energy, then other people are like, oh yeah, it's okay to be icky low energy. When you're like that high vibe energy and all this cool stuff is happening because you're moving, you're shaking, you're balancing your mind, your body, and your spirit, then other people are like, wait, I can do that too. I want to do that too. I see all these cool dreams happening and I want to create my dreams too. So that's what I want you to do for yourself. I want you to sit down. I want you to think about, is there a spot in my life that I'm not balancing? Is there a spot in my life that I would tell someone else how to balance it? I would give them advice. I would love to see them nudged forward into their best self. So is there somewhere in my life that there's a little tiny hole that I'm not really walking my talk? And, write that down. Or if you're more of an auditory person, speak it out. I'm a written person, obviously, so I do a lot of journaling. I write it all down. But my point is, think about where it is you might be off balance in your life, because that one little thing can usually play out in other areas, and it's causing that ball to get dropped in other areas. So what is that one thing that you would like to change in your life that you could start balancing today? Because if you know what you would advise someone else on, then you already know how to advise yourself on it. And you deserve to do that. Your inner child deserves the love of you following through strongly like that, committing to yourself to raise the bar for yourself. So I hope you have a wonderful day. I hope you go running out into the day with so much inspiration and creativity, and we'll chat next time.